Always chases me down, fights till I'm found this time tonight. I couldn't prove it, I couldn't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. And all the old thought when we never didn't hurt last long. Your love is real. Your love is patient. You feel my heart. So much peace and joy. You're amazing. In my life is a dream. For your promises are yes and amen. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, go. Eh? Come on. Hey. So much. Eh? It's amazing. Your love is amazing. Your love is amazing. Your love is amazing. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to GTS Gfem Talk Show, another session of pandemic relationship coaching. I am your
pandemic.
I know, right? Dr. Femi Ogunjinmi, a global relationship expert who has been improving the lives of singles and couples for over 11 years. With my impactful relationship messages, I have helped over 3 million people globally. I am the recipient of Global Relationship Expert of the Year Award by the World Civility Day, and I change nations. I've appeared on top media platforms to include TEDx, The World Network, USA Today Magazine, and so many more. I am a seasoned author. My series books, Revelations of Relationship, and the latest one, How to Tell If Someone Truly Loves You, are available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Recently this year, my name was inducted into the Book of World Greatness and also became a United Nations representative. Today, we are going to be having an important dialogue on relationship equity. Many homes are struggling with power, both husband and wife, which is leading to divorce, unnecessary arguments, fights, financial discrepancy, abuse relating to rape, domestic violence, and verbal. It is important to have this dialogue and help save marriages and restore peace. Couples can achieve relationship equity where they become power couple, strike power balance, maximize their family unit, not become inferior to one another, and raise their children with love and the right values. But what is relationship equity? Just in case you've been following me for a minute, and for the last past 2 weeks or so, you've been seeing me talk about relationship equity. What is this all about? Most people actually think that relationship equity, it is the same as relationship equality. Well, it is to some extent, except that relationship equity takes relationship equality a step further. Relationship equality says we are both equal, both husband and wife. We have same equal right, access to the same opportunities, resources, benefits, participation, etc. Now, just because we have same equal chances does not mean having equal outcome. It does not mean I get to do the same thing that you do. So here is what relationship equity is, taking relationship equality a step further. It is allowing fairness in the relationship, treating each other the way you would like to be treated, acknowledging our differences, and determining what we do based on our skill set, experiences, constraints, aspirations, core gift, and not gender. That is relationship equity. Now that I have set the tone and share what our discussion is going to be based on, I want to introduce my esteemed guest to you. Harry Baba is a community advocate, leader, and marketing and business consultant. He's a devoted father of three and a husband who has been happily married for 17 years come this July. Happy Barbara, what is going on?
Good, my brother. I'm good. How are you? How's it going? I appreciate you, Gfem, inviting me to your event. We've known each other for a long time, and I appreciate this. And I was just listening to some of the things that you have accomplished in the past few years. I remember the days where we were both promoters way back in the days. If you can remember those days,
I do.
I think we're both single and just ripping and running the streets. So you come a long way. We both come a long way.
Yes.
It's good to see you, man.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I appreciate your presence here. My next guest, BC Fanon, is a big advocate of family. She's a mother of two and wife who has been happily married for 7 years. She's a business owner and a talk show host of Africa in Demand, which promotes a positive image of Africa, its people, place, and things. BC, thank you for joining me today. How are you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me on the platform. I'm excited to be here and excited for the conversation.
Well, welcome. Now, let's talk about culture a little bit, just to create more of a background to what we are going to be discussing. Before I relocated to America 20 years ago, I grew up in Nigeria, a culture where patriarchy system is practiced. Men dominate the relationship. It makes all the decisions. He's the breadwinner. The wife has little or zero voice on the family matter. There are gender roles. He doesn't cook and clean. All that is just left for the wife to do. And there is no equality between the husband and the wife. This is the culture that I grew up in. Now, BC, how did you grow up? What was the culture like for you? What is the family dynamic that you witnessed with your parents?
Well, that's actually a very interesting question because I grew up a little bit here and in Nigeria. I was actually born here in the States, but as most people know, being born in the States doesn't mean anything. You are still raised in an African household. So for me, my first experience going back home to Nigeria was very much coming from a very big family. Family dynamics was mom and dad, as well as the rest of the village taking a hand in raising you. But in my home, I saw a partnership, to be very honest. And though, my dad was the head of the household, there was a strong partnership between my mom and dad when it came to the way we were raised and the way we were educated, and ultimately, how each of us identified what a relationship would be like. That would probably be my biggest take on what that dynamic was. It was, there was a mom, there was a dad, but there was a unison in things that were done, decisions that were made, and that kind of helped to model the way I am and the way I was in wanting and looking for a relationship of my own.
So you experienced a balanced power in the family.
Yeah, I would say it was a combination there. Growing up with different family members, because I also moved back here when I was very young and I lived with aunts and uncles. So I got a chance to see, in a way, different experiences under different African households of what I thought was good, what I would not want, and, a balance. I also lived with family members where I felt that there was not a good balance of, equality in the relationship, and it was more of a struggle, and it was more of a one person leading in one direction. So I would say I've kind of got the best of both worlds and seeing what that is like, and ultimately knowing exactly what I didn't want and what I wanted.
Awesome. Aribaba, what was your background like?
My background was like BC. I grew up here, went back to Nigeria. When it comes to the culture of marriage, I think that, of course, my father took on the role as men in those days, head of the household, as it should be in a sense. But again, my mother was, it was a partnership. And so when we talk about gender roles, sometimes it's okay, the man works, of course he works, he brings home the bacon and the wife cooks and cleans. But I remember when I was young, my father made, he was pretty good in the kitchen, you know what I mean? Once in the blue moon, it's not something you do all the time. You know what I mean? Once, hey kids, come check this. I said, Daddy's gonna cook. So they had that balance there. You know, of course, the man's going to be a man, and you know, he's going to, you know, have his authority and say, hey, look, guys, just back then it's like, go to school, just go to school. So my mother was more nurturing. She spent more time with us, and that's pretty much how it was raised. And my generation, that generation was pretty much how the father went out, worked all day, came back, and was usually home, or maybe she had something, a job or a small job somewhere or something like that. But my mother worked as well. And then so he came back and she took care of the household, and you know, that's how we were raised.
So you also experienced a balanced family, and not all the roles shifted to your mom. Your father had to do, I mean, cooking every once in a while, right?
In the blue moon.
In a blue moon.
I like the way he quickly said it, a blue moon, a very blue moon.
But I do remember him doing because reason why I remember it, because it was extraordinary that he did it one day. You know those days, you know, ECU and things like that. So he usually took care of that, and Kobe ECU and stuff like that. But other than that, I mean, the majority of the roles in the household was my mom, pretty much, and my father would come home and, you know, say,
Yeah.
"We'll do this, do that, do whatever." But I guess most marriages or most households back in those days, that's how they were traditionally. Now things have changed, and so I guess we're going to get into that. But
yes, absolutely. We're definitely going to get into that. Back in the days, we understand that the woman or the wives were kind of holding down the fort at home. They took care of the children, they prepared the meal, they washed the dishes and the clothes, everything. And they made themselves available in the other room, okay?
This guy.
I'm just speaking the truth right here, okay? They made themselves available. Whenever the man comes home, you know, he dictates when he wants to have food in the other room, okay? It's not as it is today, that even if your wife says, hey, let's go, I mean, you gotta be ready. But the man was dictating a lot of those things back in the days. And folks, as we get into this dialogue, if you are joining us on Facebook, please share this broadcast, because we want to touch the lives of so many people, many relationships, marriages. So we want the best in marriages today. And we want everyone to get the understanding and partake in this dialogue. So if you have any questions and comments, please feel free to share them, and we will discuss them on the air. And if you are joining us on Instagram, I see you, my people. Sweet Bliss, Brown Skin, King Levy, Dr. Lissier, I see you, everyone. Thank you. Please make sure you are commenting. Make sure you are asking questions. Let us have a great dialogue on this relationship equity. Now, here's what I want to say. Many of us grew up with that school of thought and ideology of the husband and wife not being equal. We can agree on that. But that mindset is not working in some families today. And here is what a guy wrote to me. He said, Gfem, oftentimes I have what I characterize as silly arguments and unnecessary fights with my wife based on my perception that her quest for equality is uncalled for or shouldn't be within the confines of marriage. Put simply, we fight about this a lot, and she mostly links it or compares it with whether or not I love her. So that means women actually think that when you don't allow them to have equal rights in the relationship, they're actually interpreting that as you not loving them. Now, Aribaba, what do you think marriages are having problems with equality today? Why are we having this equality problem? If it happened back in the days that there was no equality, and we presume, okay, I want to use the word presume now, that it worked for our parents back in the days. And the reason why I'm using the word presume is, or presumption is, just because they stayed in that marriage for 30, 40 years or 50 years, that doesn't mean they were happy in that marriage. That doesn't mean the quality of that marriage was good. Okay, they could have been staying, our mothers could have been staying in that marriage just because to make sure that the children have, money coming home from the father to help them with their school fees, and to also prevent from this, social stigma of divorce. So majority of our parents, our mothers, stayed in those marriages because of those reasons, not because that their voices were heard, not because they were satisfied and happy. Some of them went through physical abuse, but they still stayed. So I want us to put that in mind as well. But why do you think that marriages today, they don't want to go through the same thing? Everyone is fighting for that equal power and the balance. And why are we having that problem?
I think, like you said, the key word you said was perception. When people get married, everybody has a way how they think marriages should be. They're looking at their parents, they're looking at their dad, the women are looking at their mothers. But in this day and age, things have evolved. Women want to be a little more equal. But sometimes that becomes a clash, because the man, he wants to be like his dad. He still wants to be like his father. He still wants to of course, be the head of the household, but sometimes, and take care of everything. And now women, they may want the man to be like their father, but then they don't want to be like their mother. You see what I'm saying? So there becomes a clash, because maybe their mothers were submissive, that whatever happens, just to keep the marriage happy. So let me give you an example. I have a friend, he was married, and he works 24/7, and his wife was working as well. But she said, well, you're the man of the house, you take care of everything. So she took her money, according to him, and then she was doing whatever she wanted to do and started to invest outside the marriage, back home, building house, doing things for their family, stuff like that. That's just an example. Other examples is maybe the woman is making more money, and then maybe sometimes there might be an issue between them, or he feels incompetent, or he feels, oh man, she's making more money than me, what's going on? I'm the man of the house, and they start clashing. So a lot of times when they say it's money, people don't come together. So it's a mix. I see it as people are looking back at the old generation. Okay, I want to be like my father was. I want to be in charge. I say whatever I say, get up, go clean, go do this, go do that. The women in this generation are like, no, B, we got to do this together. Now, some women are like, hey, look, you know what? This is a team. That's what I do in my marriage. It's a team. We work together as a team. I'm going to take care of this, you take care of that. We work together. This is a team. It's not a competition. You know what I'm saying? It's not who makes more money or who does this, you guys work together and compromise and meet common ground. But in some cases, that perception of how a marriage should be, when people look at other people's marriages, say, well, Bob or John or whatever, or Tunde or Jim or Chinedu, he works and he just comes home and he gives his wife his own money. His wife works and she keeps the money for herself and she does what she wants. And she can party, she can do this. They don't want to do that, but they still want to be, they want to do things and they want to be free and they want to just do things. And that comes at clash. You say, well, and sometimes a man might be good at stress. You know what? I'm feeling a little stressed right now. I need a little help. What's going on? So, well, no, that's not how my parents were. That's not how my parents did it. Or the man himself might say, well, my mother was very submissive to my father, and she cooked every day. She did this shit. I didn't want you to do the same. No, I don't want to do that. I work just like you. So the perception of marriage in a lot of people's heads, they're going based off culture, tradition, and what they see or what they think how a marriage should be, instead of them sitting down, and I call it customizing your own marriage, how it will work. You have to sit down with your spouse and talk. And I always say there should be 3 people in a marriage. It should be you, God, and your wife, or you, God, and your husband. Pray about it and come together and talk about how the household should be run. Don't worry about what other people are doing and how they're running their marriage, because you don't know what goes on in their house. Sit down and just come together and say, okay, I got the mortgage. I'm going to take care of all the bills. If you can take care of the kids, make sure they got the clothes, make sure that the fees are paid or whatever. Or so I'm taking out the trash. Once in a while, I wash the dishes. Why not? You eat off the dishes too. And I remember when I had my kids, I'll be playing with them, giving them bath. People were like, what is he doing? What kind of stuff like that? They're my kids too. My wife didn't make my kids by herself. So I play with them, take them to the park, because those are my kids. God bless me with children. So I don't see it as oh, you're a man, you have to do this. You have to, I love playing my kids. I love hanging out with them, spending time with them, spending time with their wife. Once in a while, I like to wash the dishes. Why not take out the trash, do whatever the case. It doesn't matter. You know, you have to be a team. And what I see in a lot of, especially in the DMV, there's one time there's divorce every month.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then some of the reasons they just come up with, you know, and they stop. Communication is the key. They stop communicating. They start arguing, and both are very stubborn. And I mean, I have a couple of people I know. The man started sleeping upstairs or sleeping in the basement. The wife started sleeping somewhere else. You know, before you know it, they're divorced, and it's over crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I don't
And
know. The perception of this is how a marriage should be, based on other people's experiences, maybe, and then thinking that, okay, my marriage has to be this way, but it doesn't work like that. The key here is you have to sit down and customize your marriage that it works out for you. Not everything will work out. Not everything will be what you think it will be. You have to come together and work together as a team. It's a team. You see Chelsea in the back. It's a team effort. One person can't score all the goals, and you know everybody has to work together as a team. That's why I see marriage as a team.
BC, your thought?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with most of what Harry says. I think the problem is, you know, let's just go back to the biblical term of what it means to be in a marriage. You know, the man, yes, is the head, but the head needs a neck in order to move. So even from the time of biblical, you know, standpoint, it has always been a partnership. We choose to not see that because we choose to dissect the word and make it something else versus understanding what it actually says. I also think the issue is preconception. You know, Harry touched on it, but I personally feel that all of that should happen even prior to marriage. You know, as you grow up, you're only shaped by your experiences. It takes you wanting to step out of the experiences you have if you feel that you don't like it to change. And sometimes people are a byproduct of how they grew up, you know. So if all you ever saw was that your dad did take care of everything and he provided for the house, provided the money, and your mom was a stay-home mom, that might be what you aspire to. But then you can't now go and marry a man who is looking for a partner who will join force together to make sure that the household is taken care of. Just like vice versa, if you're a man who is used to there being a partnership in a relationship, well, then you can't go and settle for a woman who maybe just wants to be a stay-home mom. Those are things that I think people make mistakes about when they get married, not understanding that you need to know what it is you want from a marriage. So even to customize that marriage, you have to understand what are your needs, what are your wants, and how do you see your household? Because if you get in the marriage and then you try to customize it, you're kind of working and you're like now treading backwards to fix something that should have been discussed before you even got to a standpoint of understanding whether you want equal partnership or not. So for me, it's having those conversations early while dating, while courting, understanding what your needs are, understanding what that person's needs are, and discussing those things to see if you see eye to eye on it. Because if you don't, and you proceed in that relationship, you're just sweeping a problem under the rug that's going to resurface later. And that is the biggest mistake most people make in marriages, and why when certain things arise, it breaks the foundation because that conversation wasn't established. Now, when we look at it from a standpoint of our parents, things are very different than they used to be back in the day. Back in the day, if we go back to our culture, not only did you have a mom and dad, but the majority of the average household also had help, right? So in having help, that also makes a difference in the dynamic of what you would be looking for. Speaking from my perspective, I grew up in a household where, partially, right, back home for the small amount of years I was there, I grew up in a household where, my mom and dad had help. So my mom worked full-time, my dad worked full-time, but my mom had help to help us, to help her take care of us, to make sure that she was also able to do what she wanted to do in her career and her aspirations, while my dad also did his part. But they both contributed to the household, right? But here in the States, it's very different. So that shifts the dynamics of what maybe someone like me who even saw that is looking for in a relationship, which is, there is not that dynamic of there's the additional assistance. So yes, I would be wanting and asking for more assistance to level that playing ground of what I felt was a partnership that I saw between my parents, right? And that would mean taking on some equal responsibility. And I think, like I said, going back to it, the mistake most people make is not understanding or having those conversations early. Early on in dating my husband, we had those conversations. We almost had them on our first date. It was a 3-hour long date with lots of conversation. And as we grew to know each other, we discussed what we liked. I not only discussing it, but watching, like people can say what they want, but their actions, the way they are, also tells you a lot about who they are. So that way, you know what you're getting into.
Awesome. I love everything that you both said, from having the conversation prior to getting married to the idea of a woman wants to marry someone like her dad or vice versa, to the point of understanding how we can work as a team here, and also going with what the Bible says, that the man is the head of the family, just like Jesus is the head of the church, but also understanding that the woman is the neck, okay? And the neck or the head cannot turn without getting some kind of permission, from the neck. Otherwise, if you're trying to turn without the support of the neck, the head is going to break. So, which leads me to the issue of submission. Because oftentimes, especially Christians, we quote that Bible phrase that says, wives, submit to your husband. But then they did not read that other part of the scripture prior to that says husband and wife should both submit to one another, because Bible actually wants, or God wants you actually to achieve teamwork, team effort, team spirit. Can the two work together except they agree? So we cannot work together unless we are agreeing. And before I further on talk about other things, I just want to give a shout out to Marjorie, the coach, watching on Instagram. Sweet Bliss says, because women do not have to anymore, women have options, and in some cases, women are making more than men. I'm going to talk about that in a second. My brother Ogunjinmi is watching, and my mom is watching on Facebook. Oh, shout out to Mama. Shout out to Mama. She's listening. Yes, you raised a good son.
Toot your own horn, Femi. I know that's right.
Oh my goodness. So I got my family on. I love it. I love it. All right. So let's continue on this conversation. I want to talk about submission for a second, but I also want to reply to what Sweet Bliss says, because women do not have to anymore, meaning that she's replying that women don't really have to stay long in that relationship anymore. If it's not working for them, if they are not satisfied, if they are not happy, if they feel like they are being suffocated, and their happiness is being not, looked at, then they don't have to. Women now have options. And in some cases, women are making more than men. Let's talk about that a little bit. Women are making more than men. Back in the days, we didn't really see a lot of numbers. We didn't really see a lot of women having that financial independence, having that financial empowerment, because they were working. They were not working at home, but they were staying back at home, taking care of the family, of the children. But now things are different, where, especially let's say in America, that one income is not sufficient anymore. So you need the combination of the income of both partners. Now, both individuals have to be at the forefront, working and bringing home the bacon. So the idea of, I'm the man, I run the family because I'm bringing home the money, I dictate everything that happens in this family. And that is the way it was back in the days. But now that you both have people bringing in money, should money actually give us the power and absolute power to dictate everything that happens in the relationship?
Yeah. I want to speak to that. I go back to, I think it's a misconception, growing up, I admired my dad a lot. He raised 5 daughters, and that wasn't easy, right? However, he always instilled in us to work hard, push forward so that we had our own, so that we could have a voice and a place, not only in society, but also in whoever we choose to be our partner. But my dad was the type of person that actually encouraged my mom to be her own person in their marriage, and actually loved to see her do things on her own or aspire to achieve her dreams. My mom, my dad and mom both, you know, have their degrees. They both have their masters, and my mom actually is a doctor. She has her PhD, and that is something that my dad cheered on throughout their marriage. He actually would always say, you know, my wife's a doctor, and he admired the fact that she pursued her education and supported her in doing that. So once again, I think we assume that back in the day that didn't happen. And I think it's all about your surrounding, right? You only know what you know, and because if you haven't seen the dynamics of partnerships in, you know, any circle of your relationship, then you assume that those never existed. So I just kind of wanted to say that first. The second thing is, no, I do not think that making more should give one person or the other a right to then dismiss or be dismissive to their spouse, male or female, in a relationship. If you are looking at your relationship as a partnership, then it doesn't matter who makes more, because somewhere along the lines of your relationship, there should have been a conversation had, like Harrison said earlier, about the shared responsibilities, right? If you're working towards a common goal in a relationship, I should celebrate you making more, you should celebrate I making more, because guess what? It means that we are making more.
Exactly.
Any promotion or any job progress that I've had in my life, the first person I call is my husband, and it's, babe, we're there. We just got this. Same with him. I'm the first person he calls to say, hey, this is a new change in my career. And for us, it's kind of like, this is a change for us in our life and what we want to set up for our children. So if you look at it like that and you take out the dynamics of mine versus yours, then there is a cohesiveness in the growth of your relationship. So even though some people take it as that, I think it's such a disadvantage to think that because one person makes more, they should say more, unless there's some other underlining issues, right? Or underlining conversations that make them feel that way. And then that's a different conversation.
Yeah. Should what I make determine how much power I have in the relationship?
No, it shouldn't. No, it shouldn't. And let me say this. The verse, Ephesians 5, chapter 5, verse 22, everybody only picks out wives, be in subjugation to your husbands. But it says here, there's a long passage where it says, husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself up for it, that he might sanctify it. It goes on to say that, even so ought, he's still talking about husbands also to love their own wives as their own bodies. You know, he that loveth his own wife loveth himself. So, and the whole thing about husbands is even longer than, so everybody keep taking out that portion of the wife. But no, my thing is, it's a team effort. Check this out. I know some friends, let's say maybe they're driving cab and then they went back to Nigeria to find a wife. They're driving cab, you know, I don't know how they much, maybe $40,000, $50,000 a year. You get the wife, you take her to school, you train her, she becomes an RN, and of course she's gonna be making more money than you. But in the beginning, what if you guys are living off his money? Then she starts making more money. It should still be a team effort. You should still respect and love your husband, and he should love you. You know what I'm saying? It should be a team. But sometimes guys, some people get, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, it's just like, oh, well.
It's guys and girls, to be honest, Harrison. It's guys and girls. I've had conversation with women who do feel that if they make more, they should be able to dictate what happens. But again,
oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely have had those conversations, but what I found is it stems from something else. It's not that, it's whether or not there's something else about their husband or their significant other that they don't feel that person is carrying their weight in other areas. Whether it's the fact that they don't feel that there's a balance in, you know, the assistance to show that support, and then that makes them feel that they need to control the one thing that they can hold on to, which might be the fact that they bring in the money.
Okay.
And so again, like I said, that is a deviation from the conversation, because there's an underlining issue. Because think about it, if you know, if you truly are one and are a partnership, let's just say I am making more, or let's say you're making more, but something happens, right? You lose your job, I lose my job. Now, all of a sudden, one person is carrying the financial burden for the family. Well, if you still show support and you are there encouraging and helping in all the other ways you can. I shouldn't feel that because I bring in more money that I make you feel any less of a man or a woman just because I make more money, because I see the value you bring. And so again, I will still continue that partnership because I know that that also is a moral issue when it comes to your mindset, speaking from a woman's perspective, right? Your mindset, who you are, and who I know you can be. So if I now instantly just take the fact that, oh, I'm making all the money and use that as a power stroke or a thing to hold against my husband, well, you know, you're kind of already creating problems in the relationship. And if you're on the same page, then those issues won't happen.
And a lot of times that's true. A lot of times it's also that, like, I'm gonna go back to perception. You know, some men feel intimidated when their wives make more money. So if he feels, okay, I raised you and I'm still the head of the house, you are still head of the house, but you still gotta love your wife. You guys, and then have some situation where some women say, well, I'm making more money than you, this man is using this, that, blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna have a case here, some neighbors, so what happened to them? He brought her from Nigeria, she became a nurse, she started making more money than him, they started having problems, now they're divorced. So my brother, it's I think people, I don't know, it's like you said, they should have the conversation before they get married, but when you're married, it's about a team effort. Like you said, the man could be making 6 figures or $200,000 a year. He could lose his job and the woman's income. So he has to pick up the slack where he can. You know,
And
maybe
imagine if he had been treating her.
Say it again.
Like imagine if all that while he was making more, he was treating her like she didn't matter, or that because she didn't make money, she had no voice, and now the tables turn. You see the issue that can cause? So now if she becomes the breadwinner, now all of a sudden, depending on that woman, you know, and even a godly woman can be tested in her character. Imagine if now the tables turn and all of a sudden that woman says, oh, so now I'm making the most money. So now all the things that you try to hold over my head or you expected of me, I'm going to now expect it of you.
Right.
There was
let me say one thing. Let me say one thing. That's the competition part. Remember I said team. Team. So just for example, a soccer team, one person gets hurt, someone else takes up the slack. But if you're making more, it shouldn't matter who's making more money. It should be a team effort. Okay, you know, you're not making as much money, I'm making more money, that's okay, let's work out. Sit down on the table, work out the bills, work out the house, okay, no problem. I'm making more money, so let me take care of this. You're making less money, it's okay. You know, let's work it out, let's have a team. If you're making more money than your husband, you know, sit down with him, work it out. You know, as long as he's trying, he's doing his best, he's doing what he got to do. Don't feel that you're better than him or you're, you know, whatever, because you're making more money. Because you don't know tomorrow, you could lose your, look at 100,000 people died in America for COVID. You don't know what can happen tomorrow. You don't want, you know, and then the man or woman, it doesn't matter. If you're making more money as a man, wife making more money, you guys making the same, work together as a team for your marriage. There's too many divorces in the DMV, too many divorces in African diaspora over silly stuff.
Right. I agree with you that it's a team effort and we should not be striking for competition in the relationship. We should be looking of how do we complement one another. If you make $100,000 and your wife or your husband makes $20,000, so what? I mean, that is still people working and bringing home the money. And because you have higher income, that doesn't mean you should treat your partner in a way that, you know, you belittle that individual. Because to be realistic, and to be facing reality, just like Aribabar and BC said, things can change. The table can be turned anytime. You can lose your job any point in time. And the person that is making less this year can be making more next 2 years or even in a month. But if we start to look at each other as partners, whatever I make doesn't determine how much power I have in that relationship. I should still be able to contribute in making decisions. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. And also people look at, I was talking to a gentleman last week and we're talking about equality. And he says his definition of equality is 70-30. You know, meaning that he can bring in 70 and the wife brings in 30. Or some people might even define equality as 50-50 or 60-40 split. Like, Where are you coming up with these figures? Like,
I was going to say, is there a way to determine that I would be at 30 and you would be at 70? That is the beginning of the type of things that I call disaster. I don't think it should matter, right? I think that at different stages in my marriage, I've made more, my husband's made more, I've made less, he's made less, but I don't think that that's what you should focus on in a relationship. I think it should be the successes that you have together in the partnership and celebrating. If you're going to compete, it shouldn't be against each other. It should be against the world. You should be a united force taking on the world to better yourself and your marriage as one. And if you're doing that, you are bound to be successful, because it's us against the world, not us against each other, you know?
Yes.
I agree with that, because like I said, me and my wife, we work as a team. You know, that word equality or 70-30 has never ever come up. I've been married for going on 19, 18 years now. So that stuff, we just work together. We just make it happen. What needs to be done? How can we make it happen? That's it. You know, so I'll be honest with you, over the years, I've talked to friends. A lot of them always have this perception of what they think that a marriage or a husband or a man should be. And they look at their friends, and or women look at these women, they look at other people, and stop looking outside your marriage. Sit down with your husband and talk, communicate, work it out, pray over it, work together and raise your kids and your family. Stop looking down on whoever makes more. It shouldn't matter. Tell your husband, or husbands, tell your wife, I don't care how much you make, let's make it work. We're raising these kids. We have this home, we have these cars, whatever we're doing, let's invest, and let's just work together to better ourselves, take care of these kids. That's it.
My husband always jokes. My husband always jokes and says, oh yeah, I don't care if my wife makes more than me. That means I can retire very soon. Now, of course he's joking, but the point of that is he celebrates my successes. And, you know, that's what a united front does, because at the end of it, we push and encourage each other. And I think that that's what and how we make it work. And Harry made a good point. You know, when you look at other people's relationships and assume that, oh gosh, I want that, like, oh, look at her, you know, she never has to work. She's always looking good. She's got the latest fashion. She has this, she has that. You know, why can't my husband be like that? Well, you don't know if behind closed doors he's abusing her, which, you know, is something that Harry and I are very passionate about talking on, or whether or not behind closed doors, she actually is very sad and is being controlled and manipulated, and everything else she does face, you know, to the public is a show, because that's what he wants, is to make himself look bigger by displaying his wife as a trophy, not a partner. So you see the glitz and the glam, right? But you don't see that maybe behind that, there's a woman who is not happy because she doesn't have a voice in that marriage. And people never want to paint that picture when they're looking at what they think is what they want. And one of the things that I've always tried to do is, in my circle of friends, be very honest and transparent. If and when they say, oh gosh, you know, you and your husband, you guys are just so this, you look like you're just always so happy and you're so this. Yeah, we're those things, but don't for 1 minute think that we are not a normal couple who go through ups and downs. The difference is communication and a united front for what our goals are and what we want to achieve in our family, you know? So definitely don't look at other people and think that what they have is what you want. You have no idea what's maybe behind those doors that you don't get to see.
Absolutely. I want to give a quick shout out to my other mommy, Mrs. Bossa Olagbanla, for watching. I appreciate you all the way from Nigeria. God bless you, Mark. Now, I want us to talk about something that is really important, that is also affecting this relationship inequity that is happening in marriage. Because oftentimes in this union, there is always decisions to make relating to either a new project that requires financial investment, vacation, children's livelihood, in-laws, friends, activities, what we want to do, what we don't want to do, and so many other things. But then the question is, how do you agree on a decision when you both disagree with each other's idea? Because this is where the power struggle is coming in. Because so many times you will have ideas and subjects to talk about between you and your partner, and you will have difference of opinion. But then how do you both agree when you disagree? Whose idea or opinion do you eventually follow, or that you submit to eventually? Arbaba, what do you think?
That's a good one, man, because sometimes me and my wife, we're talking with this projects and investments and other things we have on mind. How it works for us, if she has literally more points, positive points, I may say, okay, you know what? Yeah, you got this one. You know what I mean? Or if I'm talking about something in particular and I'm going to list 10 reasons why this idea is going to work, and these are, and had done my research, and she can only list 4 or 5, then we might go with that, and or we just try to see how we can meet a common ground and say, okay, or we might take a project and say, okay, let's do it up to this point A, point B, see how it goes. If it works, we continue that way. So a lot of times there's going to be always arguments. Like I said, you can be married 20, 30, 40 years. There's going to be, sometimes there might be disagreements and stuff, but you just have to try to figure it out. If it's something where you had a lot of money has to be invested in, then you may want to put a little money in it, watch it, see how it comes about, do some research, because guess what? Your partner might be right. You might be wrong. I've been wrong several times on several things. You know what I mean? She might be right. And I find out, see, I told you so. So, well, you were right. You were right.
Yeah,
I told you so. I don't want to hear that word. I don't want to hear.
I've heard it a few times. So I made a couple of bad decisions, but that's the way it was. I was younger back then, and you make a bad decision, you look back, well, she was right. So, but I think when I look at people who have been married for 40, 50, 60 years, I go to those articles and I read. I say, how did these people last this long? 9 times out of 10, they say we were best friends. You have to have your wife or your husband as your best friend. Bottom line, like the person that you hang out with on this club, you should be able to talk to your wife or your husband the same way you talk to your best friend, your brother, your sister. So that competition between husband and wife, especially in African diaspora, is what destroys marriages. Your husband is your best friend. Your wife is your best friend. You got to love your wife, love your husband. Hopefully, now, when it comes to domestic abuse, and that's one thing, you got to end that thing. Like, BC knows what I'm talking about. But you have to establish a relationship. My wife is my best friend. That's my best friend. And you guys got to see it that way. Because think about it, when we're growing up, when we had best friends in high school and college, we'll argue with them, we'll fight, but guess what? We hook up because that's your best friend.
Yeah.
You get back together. I have people right now, I'm a Chelsea fan, Arsenal fan. Arsenal, hear me out. Arsenal has not won a title in maybe 15, almost 20 years. Guess what? These guys are still loyal to that team. If you can be loyal to a soccer team, if you can be loyal to your Mercedes or whatever, you should be loyal to your wife. You know what I'm saying? You should be able to, that's your best friend. Your soccer team is your best friend. Your car, your house, whatever. What I'm trying to say is your wife is your best friend. Your husband is your best friend. See them as your best friend, as your team member, as you, like when you drive and they're next to you, you know what I'm saying? Y'all do Thelma and Louise, you know what I'm saying? Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, your best friend. And that's, to me, that's what me and my wife do. That's how, we have our arguments here and there. We have issues, we have our concerns, things like that. But you just have to work it out. I'm sure BC is doing the same thing. I know her husband is a great guy. He's a friend of mine as well. And, I am pretty sure, I don't know what's going on. It goes on in marriage, but I know pretty sure that they are best friends. They've been married 7 years. They're going to go for another 20, 30, same with my wife.
Amen.
That's the key.
That's the key. The friendship is very important. Having that friendship. And you got to develop that from the ground up. Before you even get married. People, clients that I've had, they come to me, singles, and they say, okay, what is the stages, or what are the stages to getting into a marriage with someone? I'd say the first thing is friendship. You got to establish the friendship before actually dating. Because once you start dating before friendship, guess what? They are masking who they really are. They are masking their character. Because they want to get in the relationship, they don't really reveal their real self. They hide a lot of things. When they're supposed to speak up, they won't want to speak up because they want to get into a relationship with you. And then when guys get married, that is when they start beating you. That's when they start shouting. That is when they start, doing all manner of things that you don't like. So friendship, if you can establish that before going into the marriage, it will help you guys to resolve a lot of matters. It will help you to look at your friend as your mate, as your equal. which is very important. So, BC, how do you guys handle disagreement in your own relationship? Or
We
what
just
will
box it
be
out.
advice to people? You say just
No.
box it out? Ah! Come
You
on
know, I
now.
got my pink gloves in the garage. He has his black ones. We just
Come
I'm just
on
kidding.
now, let's go.
No, you know, again, for me, everything boils down to communication. You know, my husband would be the first to say, my wife just likes to talk. Yeah, I do, you know, because talking is how you resolve things. I'm a communications major, and communicating is what's got me very far, you know, in any relationship I've had, whether it be, you know, in my marriage and my friendships or anything else. I think it's you got to talk it out, you know, and sometimes you got to come back to that conversation multiple times, but keep having the conversation. I think, you know, you started with the question of, you know, how do you go forward when you disagree with things? You're not always going to agree. And there's some things that you're going to have to agree to disagree on. But then there's those conversations where when it comes to the kids, the finances, major investments, where if it is key, you have to find different ways to continue to have those conversations till you guys can find a common ground, because sweeping certain conversations under the rug will not necessarily make things better for you. You just have to keep revisiting it, trying different angles. And sometimes, you know, depending on the nature of the conversation, it may mean even seeking, you know, counsel outside of your marriage to kind of help you have a different perspective, because maybe you're the one that needs to hear the different perspective, or maybe it's your spouse that needs to hear the different perspective. So sometimes, depending on the nature of the conversation, of the disagreement, those conversations have to take place multiple times. But I think in order for that to happen, you have to genuinely want to hear the other person, right? So you can't go into the conversation with a decision already made in your head. You have to go into it like an open book and say, let me really hear what this person is saying. Because again, if you are a united front, then you should know that that person has your best interest and theirs in mind. So what they're discussing with you is not for their advantage alone, it's for the two of you. And if we go back to the fact that if you were truly friends in the beginning, then you would know that this person isn't doing or saying something to hurt me, right?
Mhm.
They're doing or saying that thing because they have my best interest in mind. So it's a mindset as well.
Right.
So resolving conversations means understanding where is that person coming from with this conversation that they're having with me. And if you understand that it's not from a malicious place, then it should make it easier for you to listen and be open to at least hearing their part, even if you do not agree in the initial onset.
Right. And
It's
it's a matter of trust too. Because
Yeah.
if I don't trust you that your judgment is to favor everyone, or maybe your judgment is biased to favor you, then I may disagree with you on everything that you do.
Yeah.
Or maybe I just feel like you are not making sound judgment, or you are not making what I consider an informed decision. You have not really thought everything through. Then I may disagree with you. And when your woman disagrees with you, man, I'm talking to men now, that doesn't mean they are challenging authority. Excuse me. Because sometimes men, we feel like if you are disagreeing with me as a wife, you are challenging my authority. And then if it's going back and forth, then I might now want to pull my, I want to call it something else now. But I might want to pull like my absolute authority and say, I am the man in this house. Whatever I say goes. All right.
Which is not a good thing to do.
It's not a good thing to do.
It doesn't make us feel more secure there.
Exactly. And guess what happens? You will not hear that word, I told you so, that Baba said earlier.
Well, let me say this. You guys both touched on two things. There's a key word. You use friendship, BC use friends. That friends is very important. When you're meeting, like BC said, when you guys first meet, you guys need to become friends. Through that friendship, you build trust. Like, think about your best friend, your best girlfriend, or your guy. My God, boy, how far, what didn't that happen? There's someone you trust. If you don't have that friendship, and then you start dating and going to, just like Gfem, you said, they start masking, they start pretending, they start hiding their bad side, they start lying. So you may be dating an abuser and marrying an abuser, not knowing he's an abuser. When you guys get married, when you have the first baby or so, the slap and the beating starts. So that friendship is key. Finding more about that person and maybe meeting their family, but developing that friendship before you get married is key. Even if the person is far away, you know, we have FaceTime stuff now. Get to know them, know their friends, know their family, see what's going on.
Yeah, know them beyond just that person you're seeing that you're attracted to, because if you don't know their history or some of the root of who they are, yeah, you are ending up with someone that you truly don't know, and then you know them in marriage and you're like, I didn't know this. And sometimes we know and we still end up there, and now that's a completely different conversation, right?
BC,
So
remember we talked about, you know, we're both domestic violence advocates. I always talk about the red flag.
Hold on 1 second.
Sure.
On Instagram, we are gonna be locked out in about 20 seconds, but
Okay.
I'm gonna open up the dialogue again, open up the forum again. So
okay.
On Instagram, okay.
On Instagram. So in case this broadcast ends on Instagram, please.
But the Zoom is still good though, right?
The Zoom is still good. We're still live on Facebook. So folks on Instagram will connect back with me again.
Okay. So what I was saying, the red flag situation, sometimes we want to be married. We're just like, my friends are all married. I've been a bridesmaid. I've been a groom. I want to be married. And we ignore these red flags. And then somewhere down the road, things go wrong. And, you know, in some cases, they're able to, either the man or woman say, you know what, I need a change. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. So being friends is key. It helps build loyalty, builds trust. When you make mistakes or say things, you guys have to come together and reach common ground. But when you start dating or meeting somebody, or you have to build that friendship, and just watch out for the red flags. There's a lot of people right now who are looking for husbands, a lot of people who are looking for wives. A lot of people in their 30s and their 40s, and they're still trying to find that right person. There's no such thing as a perfect person. I'm not perfect. My wife is not perfect. Beast is not perfect. Her husband's not perfect. Gfem, no one's perfect. You just got two imperfect people coming together to form a team to win. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
accepting each other's perfections and imperfections as they are, and being okay with that going into the marriage, because you have to know that you're willing to take the good and bad of the person, because no one, like Harry said, no one's all good. There's certain pet peeves that we all have.
Right.
But if I'm okay with the ones you're bringing to me, and I know that I can see myself handling all of that long term, then you are my person, right? But someone else, that might not be something they're okay with, and they go in thinking, oh, once I get married, don't worry, I can figure out a way to change or finesse them. Forget about it.
Right.
It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen.
And what I see also happening in the relationship is, because we have this tug of war going on back and forth, sometimes we get tired, and when decision comes about a subject, we make that decision in isolation of the other person. Let me share a story of what happened recently. And this is very, very important. I was on a call with an African-American lady who wants to sell a product to me. At the end of the sales call, I said, I'm going to discuss with my wife and get back to you. Mm-hmm. And she was shocked by what I said. She asked, aren't you from Nigeria? I said, yes, I'm from Nigeria. And she went on and said, look, I've dated so many African men and so many Nigerian men that I know they make decisions by themselves, that they don't have to talk to their wives about it. I said, wow. I said, I understand that, but I don't run that idea in my own relationship, because I'm a leader of all, not a leader of none. Meaning that everyone that I'm leading, I have to carry them along with my decision, especially if it's a decision that is going to impact the family. And I see this going on in the minds of a lot of men, that we have to make decisions, but then when we're making decisions, we don't carry our wives along. We don't carry the other person along, because we feel that we should be dominating the relationship and everything that we say goes. But then it's affecting the other person, because now they feel like they're not part of the family, that they're not part of the unit, that their voice doesn't matter, their opinion doesn't matter. So how can we ensure that the other person's opinion matters? The other person's voice matters. And that is making sure that we don't make decisions in isolation. And because you have to consult your partner on that decision, that doesn't mean you are weak. It just means that you are striking equality and you are making the person feel that they are part of. I mean, even look at the conversations that we are having beyond the relationship that is going on in the world now. You know, that people are even fighting for equality. that we just don't want to work for a company where everyone at the table is just other race. We want other black race or other race to be part of the decision making, because now they are having that inclusion in that relationship or in that partnership. What do you say to that?
You know, I think as you were talking, one thing came to mind, right? The saying, divided, right, we fall, together we stand, right? Or together we stand, divided we fall.
Mm-hmm.
That is not just something that resonates within the community with what's going on now, right? As a divided nation, we're falling apart.
Right.
But if we come together, you know, in unison, then we can be great. I think if people look at their marriages like that, they'll realize that it's more rewarding. You know, in the early stages of our marriage, yeah, we went through quite a, you know, we went through some struggles when it came to just wanting to do things on our own and not involving each other. But again, I think that goes back to the root of understanding why you're even together and understanding and communicating what you want for and from each other, right? And one of the things that we've come to realize is the more we are standing together as one in unison of even things like just making basic decisions, the sweeter the relationship is. There's this, you know, for me, the way I explain it is it actually makes me more attracted to my husband when I feel that he involves me in decisions he wants to make, or he says, you know, let me talk to my wife and get back to you, even when I'm not in his presence or I overhear it. That is a major attraction for me, because I look at it like my opinion matters to him.
Mm-hmm.
It matters to him to involve me in the decision he is making. So for the men out there, you want to find a you know, a button or a turn on point from your significant other, involve them more, and you'll get more out of them. And same thing for, you know, the wives, obviously. But I think it's important because, you know, let's just think about it, right? If we're working together as one and we're making decisions together, then that means we're growing in the same direction.
Right.
If I'm making a decision on, you know, let's just use purchasing things, right? You know, I want to get, I don't know, a TV or a car or something, and I'm thinking of this thing and I never discuss it with you, and you're thinking of this thing and I never discuss it with you either, and then we both go out and do something different, then there's like a clash because no one discussed it with each other. So then the question becomes, then why are you together if you're not working in unison? So I think it really just does boil down to the fact that you have to think about it like, you know, divided we fall, and together, you know, in unison we stand as one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good point, BC. I like that. And one thing I just went through my mind is I think, unfortunately, some people just get married just to be married. I hate to say it.
Facts.
They you know, because there's no love, there's no friendship. It's just, it's time for me to get married. Let me just find one trophy wife, or let me just get this guy. He makes some nice money. He's handsome. That's my house. Let me just get married.
Very true.
There's no friendship. There's no unity. There's no love. There's no companionship. It's not real. It's all fake. And after a while, it wears out. You know, okay, yeah, he has this, he had this. Let me just go and marry this guy. But next thing you know, he's smacking you around and things are not going. You're happy. You don't love him. Right. Things happen. On the other side, the guy said, let me just get this woman here, put it here. She'll be the wife, make some babies. Let me do what I want to do. You do what you want to do. So when you don't have that meeting of the minds and making decisions, and that friendship is not there, that trust is not there, and it's you guys are competing in the house, it leads to trouble. So coming together to make those decisions is like you say, even the smallest decision, you know, where you guys going to go buy groceries from, or what restaurant you want to go to, or where you're going to get the car. Do it together. You guys are friends. You got to be best friends. At the end of the day, be best friends. You got to be best friends.
I think people will argue the point. Sorry not to cut you off, Harry, just so I don't forget. I think, you know, sometimes people would, and maybe people are making these comments in, you know, your chat channels, Femi, I'm not sure, but sometimes people will say, well, what do I have to consult my significant other on every single decision? Yeah, well, it may not be every single decision, but again, that's what you communicate, right? Sometimes it's just saying, you know, when we talk about money and spending money, there's always this, well, how much is it okay for your significant other to spend without consulting you. Yeah, that's a conversation as well, because depending on how you have your finances aligned, some people have joint accounts, some people have separate accounts, some people have joint and separate accounts. And that could determine the decisions that you choose to say that you can make on your own and the ones that you say you don't make on your own. Now, I mean, I can't just go and buy a plane ticket and say, all right, I'm going to, Mexico or Jamaica and not
Right.
consult my significant other, right? Because
Right.
that would be a bit crazy, right? But I may decide to purchase, I mean, I don't know, a purse for myself, or like I've been talking about, I want this big spin bike. I may get that, and it may be a bit costly, but there has to be a number that you guys may say, okay, when it comes to our joint account, we should consult each other before we spend this dollar amount, whether it be 50, 500, 5,000 or whatever. It boils back down to communication in your relationship and what the two of you decide to do.
Right. And I think what comes into people's mind also is my money. I can do whatever I want with my money.
Yeah.
So when they have that mindset, that is my money, I'm the one making the money, it doesn't really affect our family, then it's okay. And I'll be honest with you. I see you, Pishan. I see you, Lady Orunja. I will be honest with you. Many years ago, I think I was just first year in marriage or 2 years in our marriage, I bought a Range Rover. And even though I've been speaking to my wife, I've been telling her all these years, I want a Range Rover, I want a Range Rover. So I went into the dealership, and I got into the dealership. We talked some numbers, and I spoke to my wife on the phone, while I was talking numbers with the dealership, and the numbers all made sense to me. And then my wife had to drop the phone and she had to go do some work. And then I made a decision on buying the car. And I drove the car home. And my wife was surprised, like, are you serious? Like, you bought a car. We didn't decide together. Yes, I was on the phone with you, but we didn't make a decision together. And to me, I was like, it's my money. Like, it's not going to affect our family's money. Like, I work hard for this money. And that did not sit well with her. And I had to learn that in the hard way, because God knows, maybe for days, she didn't speak to me. So I had to go through that learning phase that no matter what it is, there is no money that is yours. It is our money. I don't care how much you are making, big, medium, or little. It is our money. Every decision you want to make that is major decision, you still have to bring the other person along with it.
Yeah.
Yes. And then we can have that conversation. Maybe for an example, let's say, and that's where, another idea is accounts. Should we have joint account? Should you have separate account? And I have clients who bring up that questions all the time. And it's a matter of, look, I'm not going to prescribe what to do, but here is what works for my family. You just have to have a dialogue of what works. If one person is feeling uncomfortable and unhappy, then whatever system you are working with, it is not working for everyone. But if you have a system that works for everyone, then that is fine. So for people, I said, I don't want my wife to be calling me on decision. Maybe she goes to a store and then she sees her sister that wants to buy something and she runs into her. It's like, and you want to help your sister pay for the product or the service that she's buying. You don't have to call me to make such decision, especially if the money is coming from your own personal account, if it's not coming from joint account, but and that is why that financial independence is important for everyone. Should have their own money. And if you have a separate account, that doesn't mean you are keeping that against from me. I have access to it. If I have a separate account too, you have access to it. It's just that, what do we use that account for? And what do we use joint account for? So there has to be this dialogue that is consistent. And in your first year marriage, you're not going to get it right. Second year marriage, you may not get it right. And that is why also allowance is very important. What do I mean by allowance? Allowance to forgive the other person. Allowance to allow the person to make mistake, because they're not going to know it all. There are so many things that you will not figure it out before the marriage, that it will come spontaneously. And you have to allow that, okay, all right, this person can make the mistake as long as they are learning from it, and they're not going to make the same mistake. And
I think you have to communicate that, right? I think that we all have made mistakes in our marriages. And I think that if there's something that happens that makes you uncomfortable, you have to be able to communicate it to your significant other. And your significant other should be able to also receive what you're saying and not take it as an attack, right? So you should be able to say, hey, this thing you did not sit well with me. And of course, it's all about communication. It's all about the delivery and the tone, but allowing each other to talk about things that they're not happy with or that they didn't agree with, and having the other person hear them out and understanding where they're coming from also is part of the growth and that unison that you have in a relationship. Because if your wife wasn't able to express to you that she wasn't okay with what you did, and maybe in the onset in your mind, like you said, it's like, but I don't understand, it's my money. It's not about it's not about the fact that she doesn't know it's your money. It's the fact that you didn't bring her in on the decision, even if you did decide to do it, to say, look, this is what I want to do, this is why. Even if it's just to get her feedback or for her to give her, blessings, to say that, yeah, she knows it's something you've always wanted, she's in support of it, and she's aware,
Right.
Yeah, a lot of times, like I said, people bring up the issue, joint account or separate account. I mean, why not have both? When you were single, you had you had your own account. When you get married, you can have a joint account. You can still have the single account. Like you said, you have to have that conversation. You have to have that communication. Me and my wife, we have a joint account. We have separate accounts. But we're monitoring everything because we're a team. I know of a situation, a real life story where the man was taking care of paying all the bills, taking care of everything. And the woman said, you know what, this is my money. You're the man, you take care of the bills. And she was using her money, he didn't know, to build a house for her family back home, send her siblings to school back in Nigeria. So when he found out, they had a clash. I'm paying all these bills, I'm doing all these things, you're taking your money. Well, you're the man, you're supposed to pay for everything. I'm the woman, I can do whatever I want with my money. Sometimes you have to have that conversation. You have to be a team. So if both of you agree that you can do that, but at least have that conversation, and vice versa. Sometimes he just takes his money and just, another man might say, it's my money, I'm gonna go gamble, I'm gonna spend it, I'm gonna take the side chick out and pay for her trips to Dubai or whatever. And a lot of times it comes down to trust. It comes down to teamwork. So when I look at people, when I look at online, sometimes I don't get involved with, because when you look at a lot of people that talk about marriage online, 98% of them are not married, but they're experts. So
no idea the struggle.
98% of them are not married. They're having blogs and videos and stuff and talking about, the husband this, the wife this. Dude, you're 40-something years old. You're not married. I can't come and listen to you.
And I think people don't understand that until you get in a marriage, you have no idea. You may think you do, but it is a very different thing when you're actually in it.
And no disrespect to all the relationship experts out there. No disrespect. That's just me. I feel that, you guys are giving advice to people who are like yourselves, are not married. I think if you're going to have a conversation about marriage, at least have one person there who is actually married in that conversation. That's all I'm saying. Talk to people, because before I got married, I had this perception of what marriage would be. When I got in, it's not easy. So the first couple of years are going to be sometimes a little struggle, a little rough. Joint account, separate account, whatever you guys agree on. If he has a separate, she has a separate, you guys can still work together. That's fine. If you have a joint, that's fine. You can have a joint. He can still have a separate account. You can still have a separate account. Whatever works for you. You guys are supposed to be best friends, working as a team. Whatever works for you.
It's the communication. It's the communication. I think that's the big part that Harrison and I are both stressing, is that, imagine behind your back, someone is doing all of that, building a home back home. Like, if you were truly friends, why wouldn't you know about that, right? Why would you keep something like that from your significant other? They should either be along the way with you, or at least be able to give you perspective of whether they agree or disagree that you're doing that. But it really, when things like that happen, it's because there's a level of trust that doesn't exist, that makes the person want to do other things behind your back. And again, it boils down to communication. And when those things are found out, if you're being honest and transparent with each other, it really does boil down to there was a break in trust as to why I felt I needed to go behind your back and do X, Y, Z. Right. And those are the moments where you should allow yourselves to be transparent and honest and talk about it, because you may not know the root of it, even if you are friends. Sometimes those things happen, and it causes you to maybe put a pause on what you feel you want to share, not share with your significant other.
Yeah, we are running towards the end of the show. In about 10-15 minutes, we should be done. And I just want to share and have a dialogue about one or two questions. And folks, if you have comments or if you have questions based on what you are hearing, based on our dialogue this evening, please comment below in there on Facebook, on Instagram. Let us know what your questions or your comments are so that we can address them before we round up this evening. Let's speak about unreasonable expectation in marriage. Sometimes we see couples where a partner, because of how much he makes, let's say for an example, the man, the husband, because of what he makes, it makes the money, the wife doesn't really work, the wife stays home, for an example, or maybe the wife only makes a little bit. Just because of that, it makes the wife feel obligated to do something for him. For instance, because you're making that money, you expect that your wife should be at your begging when it comes to sex. That, or anytime you want sex, she has to be available. Or anytime you want to eat, she has to make sure that the food is on the table. And this can go vice versa as well. Or maybe you pay for dinner and then you expect your partner to pay you back with gift or other favors. And it's not just in marriage as well. I feel like this idea and this behavior even starts when you are dating the person. When they do something, are they expecting something back in return as a favor? What do you say to that, BC?
I was hoping you weren't going to pick me first, because I don't I don't know what to say to that. I don't experience it, and I think that whatever you decide to do in your marriage should be genuine. It should be because you want to do it. I really don't understand that concept, and I'm not sure why some people are subjected to that. So I will defer to Harrison.
I would say, I understand where you're coming from, G. I would say that that's that competition thing again. Again, competing with your wife, or wife competing with your husband. I did this, so therefore you should do this. No, you guys are on the same team. You guys have one goal. The goal is to run your household, to raise your kids, to have a great marriage, and to achieve set goals and objectives. I think at the end of the day, every man and wife right now who is watching, sit down, have a sit down with your wife or sit down with your husband and just lay it on the table. These are some of the things that I don't like. These are some of the things that you do. But however, these are some of the things that I like that you do. And then he does the same thing, and you guys talk about it, what you can do to make that change. Yeah. I don't believe in competing with my wife. Or I did this, or I bought this. Yeah, therefore you should do this. Why did you guys get married in the first place?
Yeah.
What's the point? When you were single, I mean, come on, guys. Your wife is not your enemy. Your husband is not your enemy. Guys should be best friends.
Yeah.
Regardless of who makes more money, it should be a team effort. Regardless who bought the house or who bought the car or who's working now or who's working then, that whole competition thing it leads to divorce.
Absolutely.
Because one person wants to be in control, one person wants to run the house, one person is not happy, one person is unhappy, miserable. They want to control the other person. They start disliking that person, and the issues come up. And then when it comes to money, so why should I do this? It's my money. Trust me. I mean, communication is key. Sit down and talk. Okay, you do these things. I don't like it. Tell me what about I do that you don't like. How can we change? You know what I'm saying? If you have to go to a counselor, go to a counselor. If you have to both get on your knees and pray, do that. I've done that several times with my wife back in the days when there was some issues. I'm a stubborn guy. So I had to sit down and pray. I'm being honest. You know what I'm saying? Let's pray about it. Let's see. What are some of the things that sometimes we have these habits we have from the single life we bring into our marriage. We have to stop. You know what I'm saying? We have to try and just wean our ways off of it. But I think this generation, when it comes to equality, don't do 70-30. Just see your wife as your partner. See your husband as your partner. When you have a best friend, do you guys do 70-30? Do you do 70-30 with your brother, your sister, your father, your mother? Do you do 70-30 with your kids? No. Why do you do it with your spouse? To me, that 50, 50, 40, forget that stuff. Just work together as a team. There's no measurement. Let's stop measuring stuff, guys.
Right.
Forget what you see on TV and stuff. Sit down in your house and figure out your marriage and work it out and customize your marriage so it benefits both of you and raise your family. And like I said, like BC said, you can see people on Instagram smiling and stuff at your home. When they go home, he's slapping her around. That's real. That's real. That is actually real.
And speaking about that, because I feel like when we don't see each other as equal, that you think you have more power over the other person. That is why we see domestic violence in relationship. That is why we see men raping women, because there is that sense of, I have power over you, and I'm going to use that power to control you or to dominate you. So we have to get it into our consciousness that we are both equal and we have equal power. And when you see that you both have equal power, or even looking at your partner as a friend, you don't want to dominate your friend. You don't rape your friend. You don't slap your friend. You know, like you see that, okay, we both have the same equal hand. We both have the same equal strength. So I don't need to make you subservient, or I don't need to dominate over you. That is not the whole idea of marriage. I was having a dialogue with a man recently about equality in marriage. He says he believes both the husband and wife have equal rights, but the woman must not misuse the right. He says that some women are stubborn and might force the man to exercise his power. That if you give some women chance for one step, they will actually take 20 additional ones. What do you say to that, BC? Do you actually see that, when women are given one chance, they take 20 multiple steps?
So I would say that person probably has an inferior complex, because to me it goes back to, there is a breakdown in your communication. Because the instant you start thinking, oh, if I give her one chance, she's going to take multiple, then you are not looking at her as your equal. You already are giving her a rope and parameters that in your mind, you feel she needs to stay within. And so instantly there's a mark that you feel that if she steps over, she is now, stepping outside of her boundaries, which means that you are not looking at her as an equal partner. There's competition, even in the tone of that comment. Right. And unfortunately, I would have to say that that is a very ignorant comment to make about your significant other, because what do you mean, if you give them one, then they want to take 10 more? Well, why should they be kept in a box to only make, it's like saying, well, if we're having a discussion, you can only make one comment. Are we truly, we truly having a discussion?
Yeah, so one of the points BC made, when it comes to domestic violence or abuse, the man is always seeks to have control of the woman. Some red flags are he doesn't like your friends, he doesn't like your family, he doesn't want you to work. A lot of women think that's a good thing when he doesn't want you to work and it's only his money taking care of the family. That means he is controlling you. Right. He can stop you from going where you want to go, control your life, follow you. So
abuse is not just physical, it is mental as well. Mental, and people sometimes forget that that's some of the things that also come along with that.
Yeah, a lot of men are feel inferior, and they feel if a woman has more degrees or she start making money, oh my God, she's gonna start controlling me and blah blah. No, y'all supposed to be a team, friends, best friends. And a lot of marriages fail because of that. One person wanted to be in control. There are some women who maybe get the RN or they get to where they're going to be, or a nice job. Unfortunately, some women also feel they need to control them. Okay, I'm making more money. Yeah, I can do this, I can do that. No, y'all supposed to be a team. Okay, he drove a cab for 20 years. It's okay. He still did everything and put you through school. And then on the flip side, the man, he has the money. He wants to control the wife, where she goes, where she come in, stay home, make babies, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you want to get a job, you want to get your master's now, you're better than me. That whole competition doesn't work. That's why people get divorced. So my advice today, everybody, sit down with your husband, sit down with your wife, have a heart-to-heart talk. What are those things that you don't like that the person does? What are those things that you do like? Remember negatives and positive, and come to some kind of, stop that control stuff. You guys are equal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Equal,
and I
equal
was
human
gonna
being,
say,
equal. It's like you and your brother, your brother equal.
yeah, and I was also gonna say I think it's also very important. I think a few points back we had talked about, you know, competing or favors. I think is what we were talking about. I think it's
Yeah,
important to understand your partner's love language. You know, most people don't know what that is. Look it up online, but understand what speaks to your partner in the form of appreciation versus um, demanding or expecting something, right? So my love language may be, words of affirmation or receiving gifts or, uh, time spent together, whereas my spouse's may be the opposite of that. I think it's important to understand also how you can show your significant other that you appreciate them, or that you admire them, by understanding how they want to receive that. You shouldn't impose what you want on them. And, that's a conversation that we had to have in our marriage. And it was shocking to find it out because it was a conversation piece. And I think in understanding that, it also changes the dynamic of the relationship and how you work together in unison to appreciate each other without having to say it.
yeah.
So I would say that for me, 3 points: friendship first. Okay, it's the foundation of when everything goes wrong, you go back to you were friends first. The friendship to me is the foundation that keeps it going. um, Definitely having similar beliefs, because for me, the relationship that we have with God independently and together also makes a difference in our relationship. And then communication. Communicate.
Awesome, BC. Thank you so much. All right, Barbara, do you have anything to say, just to drive this home real quick?
I agree with BC. Friendship. When I mean friendship, like your best friend, like when you guys were in high school with your
Not
girl
best
or with your
deal, like
boys,
your best friend.
your best friend. I'm telling you that your spouse, your husband and wife has to be your best friend. Put God in it. It's three of you in a marriage, you, your wife, or your spouse, and God. Communication and talk it out. I'm suggesting everybody watching, if you're having any issues or concerns, just find a room, sit down with your spouse, and just lay it out. Just be honest. These are some of the issues I have with you. This is some of the things you do I don't like. These are some of the things you do that I do like. And please tell me what are some of the things that you don't like what I say or what I do. Let's see. And then write it out, write it down, and just talk about it and just pray about it. And both of you go to God and whoever you worship and say, yo, help us with this marriage, help us succeed, help us, whatever. And then just keep praying about it and then work on those issues, because there's some habits. Guess what? There's one time I used to smoke cigarettes when I met my wife. I quit it because it wasn't healthy. I knew it wasn't healthy, but I needed her to say, nah, B, we're not doing this. So we quit. You know what I mean? So there's some things that we do that we know they're not that good. We have to stop. If you're abusing your wife or you're abusing your spouse or you're doing something, you're cursing, whatever the case, say, you know what? She's right or he's right. I need to stop this. I need to think about this. So have that conversation. At the end of the day, like I said, when I talk to people, when I read articles about people that have been married for 30, 40, 50 years, that key word, she or he is my best friend.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, BC and Aribaba, for giving all those great advices: friendship, similar beliefs, communication, friendship once again, putting God in your relationship, talking it out, having deep communication and conversation, make it all the time. And then looking at yourself as equal partner, work together as a team player, and this will help your relationship. Listen, guys, it's coming to the end of our discussion tonight. I know that you guys loved it. Deborah watching on Facebook, I appreciate you. Everyone that has shared this video, I appreciate you on Facebook. My folks that are joining on Instagram, thank you so much. So Doc, Lady Orinja, Baby Shah 2000, everyone else, I appreciate you. God bless you so much. And my beautiful wife for watching as well. I love you, girl. All right. Here's the last thing that I want to tell you guys real quick. I want to help 200 couples achieve relationship equity on June 24th. And I want you and I to work together to achieve this. June 24th has been granted as a national day to celebrate relationship equity. I've created this day and it's been approved to be a day every year to show awareness and to celebrate this concept. This is going to be my lifetime work, guys. And I want to help as many couples achieve relationship equity in their marriage. Why am I doing this? You have heard from our discussion this evening. There are so many marriages suffering from divorce, arguments, fight, financial discrepancy, abuse relating to rape, domestic violence, verbal abuse, all because they don't have equality in the relationship. I need your help to save these marriages. And here is how you and I can work together to achieve this goal. One, I will be posting the badge of National Relationship Equity Day on June 24th on my social media page. I would like you to copy it and post it, that same badge, on your page with the hashtag National Relationship Equity Day. And my social media handle is on IG, Gfem Speaks, Facebook, Gfem Speaks with an S, and then Twitter at Gfem Radio. And just in case, if you cannot post that badge, if you choose not to post that badge on your page on the 24th of June, what you can do is share a picture of you and your partner with the hashtag National Relationship Equity Day, because everyone loves a quick couples picture. So please, you can share a picture of you and your partner on that day with the hashtag National Relationship Equity Day. And lastly, you can switch roles for that day with your partner. One of the problems in relationship is we've already considered some things, gender roles. We need to switch roles. Whatever role that has been assigned to a particular gender in your relationship, let the other gender do it for that day. Because the idea is, yes, Alibaba, the idea is to practice not making an activity a gender role, but your interest, your gift, and your skill set leading the way. For instance, changing diapers, cooking, making decisions, laying the bed, teaching the kids, bathing the kids, taking them to bed, taking the trash out. I mean, washing dishes.
I can see madam taking out the trash.
Hey, fixing something in the house, sweeping
Oh,
the floor,
man.
washing the bathroom. If these are roles played by a particular gender, just exchange that role just for one day. Just pick a role, exchange that role with your partner. And by switching these activities, it's not only achieving gender equity in your relationship, it also allows you to see how much effort it takes to do what the other person does for the family. And ultimately makes the other person feel appreciated for being relieved of that particular duty. And perhaps you have any question and suggestion on how you want to partner with us or work with us on this day, please, you can always send your comments, your questions, your information to info@nationalrelationshipequityday.org, info@nationalrelationshipequityday.org, or you can even send me a DM on my Facebook page or IG, and we'll make things happen. And right now, just do me a favor, share this broadcast with somebody. Share it on your timeline, with your partner, with your friends, with your family, with your group. Let's make 2020 the year of relationship equity. I am Dr. Femi Ogunjinmi, and I will see you same time next week, Thursday at 8 p.m. Alibaba and BC, thank you.
So bye, BC.
Thank you so much. Thank you for allowing us to be on the platform with you. I think this is a great conversation that we definitely should continue.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Gfem, thank you for having me. Now the gender switching role. If I do that, my kids won't eat my food, though.
Listen, let's try that. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. They gotta eat it with love. They gotta eat it with love. They gotta eat it with love. Okay. Daddy is trying. Okay.
Okay.
My kids encourage me all the time, like, Daddy, why don't you just try? And I've tried, and they love it. They just, give it a shot. Let's just do it. Hey, let's see how it goes. All right, guys.
All right, guys.
Cheers to your improvement.
All right, BC.